This is one of my favorite things to do in the world. Uh, I discovered this exercise. I think everyone who draws at some point in time learns an exercise similar to this. But uh, I don't know when I watched something. It was this, I can't remember which artist it was, but he just called it automatic drawing. And what I'm doing is I'm just moving the pencil, and I'm not putting much thought into I'm trying not to put much thought into what's happening. Now, I used to do this. I think I used to do a lot of scribbling when I was younger, and you just get some enjoyment out of scribbling. I don't know, I think everybody has that. I think when I started filling in these little areas and slowing down a little bit when I was doing this, when I started to enjoy it a little bit more. It's a exercise for your brain and for your hands. And for me, I think one of the things that happens is you start discovering these more dynamic shapes. And I see compositions happen sometimes. And I'm trying my best not to mold it. But, towards the end of any of these drawings, I usually start to add these little elements of, for me, it always ends up being like organic or like, I don't know, I start to like put like rib cages almost in, and teeth and organs and things like that. The shapes that look similar to those. I think the artist that I saw the video of this he had like learned this from Moebius. And if you don't know who Moebius is, just look him up. And most people who are artists or comic book artists or into stuff will know who he is. But if you don't, look up Moebius. One of the great illustrators, French illustrator. Lots of like sci-fi fantasy stuff, but there's something really unique about his work. And I didn't really get into Moebius until about 10 years, or not even 10 years ago, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I don't want to talk about that, but she was really into Moebius, and I just, I knew who he was before this, but I just got more into his stuff through her, and reading the Inkle. She had all these trading cards of Moebius drawings. I love his work. There's something. He's one of the most celebrated illustrators for a reason, I think. And I think so many people are influenced by his work. But anyways, what I'm trying to do here is, like I said, sometimes I'll look at some of these drawings later and I'll try to pull things out of them. Composition ideas or dynamic shapes. One thing that happens sometimes when we're drawing is if we draw two lines that are parallel to each other, no matter what the shape is on either side, you can probably hear that train going by. I live right by a train track. The image or the shape can be kind of stale, but if the lines are different on either side, it can create some interesting things. And I like to just move the pencil around these big flowing movements. I think a long time ago when I first got into drawing cartoonish style figures. It's like specifically old animation, like Max Fleischer. You would see these big, rounded, wavy lines that seem so perfect to me. When I was growing up, in the 90s, some of my first, some of the most impactful images that I saw were from comic books. And just because of the style of the 90s, the inking was very scratchy, the lines were very, in between, rounded and jagged, but, thin lines were cool. Lots of thin lines. If you look at some of the comic books from like Image Comics from the early 90s, it's a very specific style. If you're not familiar with it, just look up Image Comics or look up Jim Lee or Rob Liefeld or, even a lot of the Marvel stuff and DC stuff that was coming out at the time. They were starting to change from a more traditional inking and drawing style to trying to be more exciting. So it took me a long time to get into the idea of like heavy, wavy lines, but now, it's such a big part of the way that I make art. There's a Japanese artist. He's sort of like the pioneer of manga anime. His name is, I don't know, I have a hard time with Japanese names. I feel bad, I don't want to butcher them, but I believe it's Osamu Tezuka. And his work had this huge effect on me. And because it's sort of like an older manga style, it has more rounded lines, heavy lines. So now I'm starting to break from that a little bit and starting to mix in some more jagged, some more angular lines in my work. And I like the way that it feels. I'm just trying to be more free. Yeah, these kind of meditative exercises are good for you, I think. Even if you're not an artist or you don't have a goal in mind, there's something therapeutic about this exercise. Especially I've done them with markers, colored pencils. The one thing I'd recommend is, a lot of times when I'm sketching, or if I'm drawing, I'll use a regular mechanical pencil with a pretty thin lead, but I like the way it feels to use a heavier pencil for this exercise, because it just flows better, it's smoother, and I'm not really as worried about like the thin, tiny details. Again, you're trying not to think about, is this good or not? And I think you'd be surprised at how good this feels if you don't do this. When I have time, on days that I have time, I'll usually start drawing by doing this. Probably running out of time here. It's still quiet in my apartment, which is unbelievable. I'm so grateful right now, but it's like I'm just waiting for someone to get home and start stomping, crashing, and so I didn't talk about too many personal things in this one, but hopefully if you like art and you like drawing, you'll try out this exercise. So anyways, like I said, I'm still figuring out what this channel is. If you like this style of video, then subscribe. I'm gonna try to do, around 5 videos a week where I'm talking. I think I can handle that. I don't know if I can do 7, but I think I can do 5. So